I was scared. I was hurt. I was like, is this going to work? I had people tell me, you are dumb. You are stupid. Why in the world would you want to start your own thing? And I'm like, because I got to. And I got to do it because I want to specifically go back into the inner communities, the lower end communities, the less fortunate communities, and bring my wisdom, what I've killed, and bring it back to them and feed them and help them out. And I didn't know how I had an idea, but I didn't know how it was going to work. I didn't know what was going to happen. I just stepped out of my comfort zone, man. I had a vision, I had a strategy, and I worked it, bro. And it's been solid.
Welcome to the Rich and Regular podcast, where we explore life at the intersection of money. I'm Kirsten.
And I'm Julian. And if you ever looked at the cover of our book, right at the tippy top, right above the words cashing out, it says, and I quote, "The talk you desperately needed from the big cousins you've always looked up to." That's a quote from Anthony O'Neill, who's the speaker and author of Debt Free Degree. He does a lot of other things. He has grown tremendously over the years. And so this conversation is us catching up with Anthony. He has a new book out. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about his life. We're going to talk about vision, all these things. It was a really, really great conversation.
Yeah, we started because I had actually read the book and wanted to talk about it. But once we saw each other, it was like, let's just catch up. And so the first half of this conversation is really just about where he is in his life as a creator and as a YouTuber and just a man who's trying to get married. And then the second half is about his new book, which is called Take Your Seat at the Table, comes out January 14th. And it's about calling out what's keeping you stuck, kicking the wrong people out of your table, and doing what you need to do to live a life full of abundance, freedom, and purpose. I think Anthony's story is proof that you don't need permission from anybody to level up. And today we're unpacking the lessons that he's learned along the way. So it's a good conversation. I hope you enjoy it. Tap all the way in. And if you like what you heard, as you always do, leave us a 5-star rating and review or a comment below, and we'll keep the conversation going.
I've known you for a number of years now. And when I think about our audience, and I think about myself, I'm a few years older than you are. Our audience is a reflection of us. So they are older, I would imagine,
Wiser.
than, I wouldn't say wiser.
Seasoned.
You know,
I'm not wise over here. God, no.
See, you are. And, that's kind of where I'm going with my first question, because I'm going to make an assumption here based on my understanding of our audience. They're looking at you. They're saying, this young boy that they know from the internet, that they've heard, that they've seen. Why should I be listening to him? I know why they should be listening to you. I know why they should potentially pick up your book and listen to it or read it. But, you know, I would imagine to some extent you have either felt that kind of energy, or you have maybe even directly kind of been told that. I don't know. But what do you say to people who are maybe a little bit older than you, think that they're a little bit wiser than you, but you're looking at it from a younger perspective? And I would say certainly from a more diverse perspective in terms of the breadth of your experience. What do you say to people who are just older from a personal finance standpoint? What do you think some of the things that they may be overlooking or overly hesitant on? Like, what do you say to the aunties and the uncles out there?
Nah, the aunties and the uncles out there, man, I say I totally get it, right?
Yeah.
Like I totally get who is this young kid? He's 40 years old. You know what I'm saying? I'm 60, I'm 50. He hasn't lived life as long as me. And I have not. And I would never argue with that argument. Here's what I will say is that wisdom does not come with solely age only. Wisdom comes with life experience. It comes with the assignment that I have from a spiritual perspective. And so for me, growing up at the age of 18, getting into all that debt, being homeless, and then forcing myself to get into books, to get into podcasts, to get into particular classes, to eventually go on and work with one of the most influential people in the financial space and spend 8 years there and gain all that wisdom and knowledge, and then to come out and to launch it on my own, do my own thing, get out of debt, build a multiple seven-figure business, and really live that life. You have to give some credit to that establishment, right? There has to be something there to say, you know what? He's built something. He has conquered something. Bishop T.D. Jakes once said this when I was young. He said, go kill something. He said, I will respect you in the industry when you kill something. I was like, kill something? I ain't about to kill nobody. What you mean? He said, back in the days when you were a man and you was living in tribes, you were respected as a man when you went and killed a lion, when you went and killed
Mm-hmm.
something and brought it back to the community and fed them. So from this practical perspective, I went and I killed the debt. I went and I've killed what people said is normal, is common, and I came back to the community, and I'm coming back with the fruit of what I killed. Hey, I want to give you the wisdom that I gained. I want to give you the experience that I've learned. I want to give you the mistakes that I made, and here's how you avoid these mistakes. But then also too, there is a level of I was sitting down one day with a good friend of mine. She is a doctor at a very well known HBCU, and she said, Anthony, there's two things about you that people can say about you. And I was like, what's that, sis? She said, I could discredit you because yes, you've done it from a practical perspective, but you don't have any education behind it, and I can disagree with you. And I was like, discredit me and disagree with you. And I was like, so she said, and that's only because you don't have a piece of paper, only because you haven't sat in the classroom. So, bro, what I did was I said, cool, great. I went back to school. I got my bachelor's in finance. I'm in the MBA program right now, the executive MBA program, and I graduated in December of 2025. So now this way, after next year, I don't care what aunt and uncle say. I'll be
I'm
like, yo,
credentialed.
you can't argue what I've built. You can't argue what I've succeeded at. And now you can't even argue that I do not have the education because I went back and I have it. So not only would I
Yeah.
have a
Yeah.
bachelor's in finance, an executive MBA, in church economics management, I will also have my CFP certificate. Now, I don't want to be no financial planner, so I'm not going to go all the way up because I don't want to be governed by the board, but I will take those courses to make sure that I have the education. Now, no one can sit here and say Anthony doesn't have the education or the experience. All they can do is disagree with me. And I end with this.
Yeah.
So many things people can disagree with Dave Ramsey, but they can't discredit that man. They can disagree with a Mark Cuban, but you can't discredit that man. You can disagree with a Robert Kiyosaki, but you can't discredit that man. I'm positioning myself to where aunts and uncles, you can no longer discredit me because I got the paper.
So you know what? A determined auntie and uncle will find a way.
That's just a hater.
They
that
will
ain't got nothing to
find a
do
way.
with age.
They will accept that challenge. I want to drill down on something that you said, or I guess something that TD Jake said that really resonated with you, because I think you're alluding to it, but you killed comfort too, right?
Yeah.
Because that really is what I was thinking when I was talking about or thinking about some of the people. You were talking about professionals who are very comfortable in their careers. And what we've learned over the last 3 years specifically, and we knew this day would come, that many people felt like they could kind of ride it out, that they could continue to play it safe, be comfortable, that it was cool what you and Anthony and all these people online are doing. They're like, that's cool, but that's not me. And now I think, unfortunately, a lot of people are finding themselves in this situation. So can you talk a little bit about what it took for you to overcome the comfort of being in one situation and then deciding that you wanted something bigger, something more for yourself? Like, what were the steps that you had to take kind of emotionally and maybe even spiritually for you to find or overcome that comfort?
You know, there's this saying that I use that nothing extraordinary happens inside of your comfort zone. That if you step outside of your comfort zone, that's where the extraordinary is going to happen. But if you live in that comfort place, you're just going to be average. I remember I was sitting down with the Success Magazine, and they said, man, you've worked with some amazing people. You've helped them build their legacy. And she said, I don't want to talk about them no more. She said, I'm a fan of yours. what are you doing for your legacy? What are you doing for you and your family? And bro, when she asked me that question, I didn't have a good answer.
Hmm.
And when I went home that night, I couldn't sleep for like 3 days because what I realized was I got comfortable. I got comfortable in getting the high salary. I got comfortable in getting the 401k. I got comfortable
Mm-hmm.
in pride around and flying around the private jets. I got comfortable with I got comfortable with building something else that did not benefit me or my family because I
Mm.
had the financial resources. And it hit me, and I'm gonna say this respectfully, when I die, all I had was a 401k to leave to my family and loved ones.
Mm.
And I said, I can't do that. That's not who I'm called for. Not saying that that's everyone should start their own thing, right? Because everyone, I need a Scottie Pippen. You all need a Scottie Pippen. You all need a Dennis Rodman. Like entrepreneurs, we need those people. And there are people who were designed to be the second man, second woman, the third woman. But for me, I was like, wait a minute. And when she hit me with that, I don't think that lady knows, and I hope she's listening to y'all podcast because she has a sister too, and I hope she hear this. She planted the seed in me for me to start the transition because I was like, I'm comfortable. I've gotten comfortable. I got a nice townhome. I'm driving a nice car. My job is pretty much easy. I love where I'm at. I'm doing some amazing things here, but I really
Yeah.
wasn't doing what I was fully called to do because I got comfortable. So, AKA, I turned a temporary season into a permanent season, a permanent situation.
Mm.
And I was wondering, and I realized why I was feeling sometimes down. It's because I really wasn't operating in the direction I needed to go. And my full potential wasn't being used. And so I'll be honest with y'all, man, when I launched my own business, man, I was scared. I was hurt. I was like, is this gonna work? I had people tell me, you are dumb. You are stupid. Why in the world would you want to start your own thing? And I'm like, because I got to. And I got to do it because I want to specifically go back into the inner communities, the lower end communities, the less fortunate communities, and bring my wisdom, what I've killed, and bring it back to them and feed them and help them out. And I didn't know how I had an idea, but I didn't know how it was going to work. I didn't know what was going to happen. I just stepped out of my comfort zone, man. I had a vision, I had a strategy, and I worked it, bro. And it's been solid.
You know, we've been fortunate to watch from sometimes up close, but also from a distance, man. And it's been really impressive to see everything that you built. I got a couple more questions, but I feel like Kirsten has something that she wants to
What
squeeze
up,
in.
sis?
Well, I just wanted to know, now that you've been through the formal education process, compared to the way that you used to learn, the way that you're comfortable learning, the way that you've been very successful learning through the school of hard knocks, the school of experience, do you have a preference? You seem to know what you're meant to do from an inner place. Do you have a preference on the way that you prefer to learn? Do you like the more formal settings of school, or do you kind of like breaking stuff and effing around and finding out?
Hey, you know what? I kind of like the effing around and finding out with a little bit of classroom. And so, starting in March, I will be an adjunct professor. So I'm going to bring that to the classroom, right? Because I'm teaching financial
Amazing.
management, and so I'm going to bring that street that yo, this is how I got it. But if I would have had this little bit of nuggets from here and there from an educational perspective, man, I would be there. But and I gotta watch how I say this because I am officially a college student now, right? So it's like I don't want to knock schools, but I think that is the part that schools miss is the practical side of things. Like
Yes.
I have not had to use algebra since I left high school. Why are you teaching me algebra? Like what? Like no, teach me how to calculate how much taxes I'm going to be paying on my salary. I mean, out of my check. Teach me how much money I need to have inside my savings account. Teach me the truth about credit, right? Okay, like people know from my past that I was a whole no debt guy. Still am a no debt guy. But I don't have a problem with a credit card. If you could pay off that credit card every single month and don't pay no interest, but you're receiving interest, yo, by all means do it. But we're not even teaching people how to really effectively use credit cards. But we want to teach them, well, if you carry that 2/2 and minus is one, -1 and get a -0, when am I applying that into my everyday life? So what I told my president at Virginia Union University that, hey man, I'm teaching the freshmen financial management. He's like, bro, I want you to do what you do on YouTube and just make sure that it falls in line with our curriculum that I helped them write. And so for me, it's just, sis, to answer your question, I'm still 75-25, like 75 practical, then
That's a
25
good balance.
knowledge.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good balance. I was hoping you would say something like that because I feel like that's the thing that people who look to discredit miss is that knowledge doesn't mean much if you're not applying it anywhere. There's a lot of people that know a bunch of stuff but ain't never done nothing, ain't never achieved nothing, never tried nothing. And there's a lot of credit that comes with that as well. And finding the right balance is an important part whenever you're assessing anybody. Like you gotta take both pieces and say, what have you done? Not just what do you know?
And let's look at it though. How many college students are graduating? I went to a restaurant. I had to go on campus. I went into a restaurant. I had my gear on from school, and he's like, "Oh man, you graduated from VU?" I was like, "Yeah, man. I'm in a master's program right now. I'm in a restaurant, sis." He's serving me my food. He got a bachelor's degree. He got the education, making $15 an hour. I'm like, what's
Mm-hmm.
the problem here? And I think it's because schools are not, we got to change how we approach school a little bit. We got to give them that book smart, but we got to give them that practical smart too. Hey, when you get out in the real world, here's what you need to do. Here's what you need to say. And we teach half of the stuff they learn. And I hate to say it, they never going to apply it again out in the real world. So I'm just grateful that they've invited me to come in and they gave me the freedom to really teach financial management to this underclass. And I'm excited about it.
I want to stay on education for a little bit, and I might be putting you in a little bit of a bind here because I don't want you to talk trash about your program.
Yeah.
But if we feel bold enough to say that there are younger people who are in school and that there are institutions who aren't necessarily hitting the mark in terms of preparing people for the future, well, can the same be said for continuing education or adult education or executive MBA programs? And I ask that because I know a lot of people, again, going back to what we know about our audience, and you said 50 and 60, there's a couple of them, but, there's some of them also in their, upper 40s, and, younger too. But, I'm specifically talking to the more mature, seasoned professionals out there who believe that when they hit that big early or mid-career bump, that the default response is to go back to school and to get an MBA. You've done that, but you've done that in tandem with growing a business, right? So
Facts.
what's been your experience with that? And do you feel as if the executive MBA programs are also kind of missing the mark and not necessarily setting people up for future success? Like, what's been your experience with that?
That was a good question. I think the reason why I chose Virginia Union University to go back to school and to continue my education is because we are aligned. So when I sat down with the president and the VPs of the department, I said, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm teaching financial management and financial literacy for a living for the rest of my life. What program? And I saw their executive. I wanted to get the bachelor's in the business finance because I do want that. And honestly, I did learn from it. But I said, what master's program, if any master's program, works well for me? So there's like, hey, you have two options. You have the MDiv, which is the master's in divinity, because I'm teaching from a biblical perspective, and I want to make sure that I can intertwine practical money skills in with the word, or we can give you an executive MBA in church economics and management. And so that's me helping churches make money outside of tithes and offerings. So I can go in there and help them with accounting, help them with, buying land to where they're not pressing people for offerings, but I can also go inside the church and teach debt management, financial management, etc., to their parishioners. And so I do believe, here's why I say I'm 50-50 on executive MBAs and continuing education. The reason why I love it for me now is because I've built something and I know what I'm doing, and now I am intentional about the education that I am receiving. I think the
Yes.
problem is people get older and like, oh, I'm gonna go back to school, just go back to school. But you
Yeah.
can't apply it to what you're actually doing and where you want to go. So you spend all this money just to say you have an MBA, an executive MBA, the common MBA after your name, but you're not applying it. I think that's a waste of money. So for me, I'll be sitting in classroom. I'm excited. Oh, this is good. I can go back to this church and teach them. What? I didn't know this word, because it's like I'm there to learn what I'm doing now, and it's going to help
Mm-hmm.
me build further. But half of the people who do it, man, they just doing it because they just want to say they did it. And to me, I think that is a immature move to say that you have a degree in something and that you paid a lot of money for in something that you will never use, but you will only have it just to say you had it. And I
Yeah.
think we got to look at education differently, man. I would never change my stance on college. Well, I don't think college is for everyone. I genuinely don't. But I do know where God has taken my business, and you all know this, man. So everyone's breaking out with podcasts. Y'all been in the game for a minute, right? Yeah, y'all are experts, right? You know what I'm saying? Y'all got TV shows like yeah, but now everybody, because of Chat GPT, could be a podcaster and an expert in something. They're regurgitating your content, my content, other people's content, and now they're an expert. And so I just wanted to find something that just differentiates me from everyone else, and that puts me and keeps me in that category of an expert. And this just helps and adds to that.
Yeah.
What's your favorite way to make money?
Huh.
Because you got a lot of avenues, you got a lot of paths, right?
But let me
I
tell
got a
y'all something,
favorite.
man.
I love. I'll be honest. Like I love speaking.
Yeah.
It is an opportunity for me to be direct, bold. It's energizing for me. It's lucrative. You have an opportunity to connect directly with the people that you are impacting or teaching. But there's so many ways as a creator. You're a creator. You're a podcaster. You got a lot of different ways, different avenues. What has become your favorite way of earning income?
Man, mine right now is, I gotta say, is YouTube.
Hmm.
It's the easiest money for me to make. It doesn't require a lot of stress. It used to be speaking, but as I'm getting older and I desire to find me a beautiful wife like the way you do, like my sister, and have a family, man, I did almost 200 dates this year. And I'm like, I'm tired. And there's no way
Yeah.
in the world my wife, a black sister, is going to be okay with me on the road 200 dates out the year. Let's just keep it a buck, right? That's why your wife is laughing right now, because she's like, nah, my baby's going
I
that
don't
long. We
don't
gonna be
attach me to
wrong.
your little
Yeah.
She'd be fine. She'd be like, "Oh,
yeah,
I
I'd be
get
like,
that
go
money."
ahead.
You may be
I'll
like,
see
hey,
you the
you
other
getting that money though?
165 days. That's perfect.
But
Hey,
after a
listen,
year,
I understand. I understand. Y'all been married for so long too. She probably like, go ahead, get that money while you're out
Yeah,
there.
get that money.
But for me, I know that's not a good. It's not that wouldn't be good to start a marriage off with. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's tough.
right now, what I'm trying to do is not trying to do. The last 2 years, I've been very intentional about making sure that I set up money that doesn't require me to be there, right? Because the
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
first year I do plan on cutting back tremendously. Like 2025, I've already told my team I'm cutting back 30%. So the income will go down, but we will still never drop below what we need to make to have a comfortable lifestyle and a comfortable family. But I knew I
Right.
was going back to school. So my goal is 2025, finish school, 2026, get married, right? So that's 2 years that I need to be prepared for, that I cannot be fully invested into things the way I've been the last 3 years. And so, man, YouTube for me, we've just mastered that so well. We're about to hit 1 million subscribers on there. We're already
Amazing.
tracking about like 200,000 downloads. So brand deals and affiliate deals, man, y'all know that stuff, man. It's just been lucrative for us.
Hmm.
And And it's just so easy. And for me, as y'all can tell, because I'm still talking now, I love to talk. So YouTube, I can talk for however long I want to talk. When we're paid to speak, bro, we got 30 minutes and 45 minutes. I can
That's
talk for 2
true.
hours on YouTube if I want to and make some money, And so
Yeah.
I think, man, and let's look at it, man, because I think this is where aunties and uncles and even grandmas and grandpas get it confused. I was studying on what's his name. He's blowing up right now. He's about to surpass Mr. Beast.
Sanaa.
Yeah.
Kai
Kai
Cenat.
Sanaa.
He's doing $2 million a month.
On Twitch or YouTube or both. Do you know?
Both his
Yeah.
brand, period.
Both.
Dude is doing 700,000 live streamers every time he goes live.
Mm-hmm.
He keeps surpassing things. And what I'm noticing is that times are changing. I remember when I was looking at YouTube and people saying, yeah, I'm a YouTuber. Man, you ain't got no real job. Now we got a young kid
Yep.
on Twitch making millions. Everybody wants to be on his show. Everybody.
I know.
And
to be clear, he is an expert in nothing. They just like him. He just loves to talk.
But what he is expert in is entertaining people.
Yeah, obviously. Like, he's very entertaining. He's funny. He's connecting with people who aren't used to being connected with in a very meaningful way. But I mean, in terms of like subject matter, he's not like, a Scientologist or like a journalist. He's just a guy with a camera in his room.
In his room, in a room that the house is worth millions, right? And I'm like, okay. I'm like, things are changing. And so for me, I'm like, I don't want to be left behind. And I think sometimes we can be so stuck in our ways that we're not learning what's happening. I think YouTube, Twitch, podcasting is the future.
It is.
We do have to identify, how do we stand out though? Because everybody's going to be doing it, right? I was sitting down with the White House Congress about a month ago, and they were interviewing me and like 3 other big time creators. And they were just shocked to hear of like creators are really making this kind of money. Like, wait, what? And I'm like, yes, not just making this money, but we're impacting lives, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're employing people. But we still can't put on, when I went and got my building for my studio, I couldn't put I was a creator.
That's right.
I couldn't put that I was in a creative way.
Frustrating.
Yeah.
Frustrating.
And you're probably like hesitant to even use that word in certain circles because that you might be discredited, even though
try to get a mortgage as a creator.
Right.
I was discredited. Like, they was like, well, how do we know your money's going to be? I was like, do you see my savings account?
Right.
you see that you see what the last 3 years of my taxes have been. What's the problem? You know what I'm saying? Because and I can keep it real with y'all. They wouldn't question no stripper like that. Y'all give more value to the stripper industry than you give to the creator industry. Come on, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on, man. So it's like, for me, it's like, man, bro, to answer your question, man, I'm really loving this YouTube space. I'm learning it more. I'm trying to see how can I expand it more. Like, I even just launched a network to where I want to create other, not YouTubers, but other thought leaders in their prospective spaces and get them paid. And I eat a little bit off of it, but they own all of their intellectual property. It's just like, I just want to build a family of thought leaders who are taking advantage of Twitch, YouTube, podcasting, etc. But we're impacting lives, because if we impact a lot of lives, we'll make more income.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's important, especially as you are on your journey to starting your family. It's so important that before you go into raising a kid that needs to grow up in 2045 or 2050, where it is going to be digital first. It's digital first now.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. I want to talk about the book, but before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about the Black community specifically, which you do address in part in the book that you have releasing in January. But I know you just visited Africa. Was that your first time?
That was my first time, man. especially
Okay.
after
And
that
I know how
stupid statement you made.
transformative it was for us. Like
Yeah.
our honeymoon in South Africa literally is the origin story of Rich and Regular. So talk to me a little bit about how that trip um, shaped or changed your life, and, you know, the way that maybe you even view just the Black community and the role that it plays in all the things that you're doing.
Yeah, man. I left Ghana, Accra, Ghana, a different man with a different perspective. And I think about a year before that, I had made a stupid statement accidentally, right? And I said, I want to take my kids to Africa so that they can learn, see how blessed we are, because some of them are living in trees and in the woods. One of the most disrespectful things I could have ever said. And I didn't mean it in that context, right? I meant it from like the different tribes and the cultures that parts of Africa have.
Mm-hmm.
I left there also disappointed in the United States education system, of how they portray Africa, how they educate our students when it comes to Africa, because they only give one synopsis of Africa. Because when I went to Africa, I saw everything in the United States. I saw the mansions, I saw the Rolls Royces, I saw, the restaurants. I mean, we ate at a 5-star steak restaurant. I'm like, oh, this is delicious. But then
Yeah.
also I
Did you go into
saw,
the kitchen?
oh man, listen, I went in the kitchen in one of them, and brother, I'm like, what in the world, right? So I'm like, I'm seeing that. We're staying in a 5-star resort, 5-star Airbnb, but then we also do see the towns that lights turn off at 7 p.m. for the
Yeah.
rest of the night. They can't turn back on. They got candles, right? We do see the communities with no roads and cars all over the place trying to get through. We do see the mother with her baby strapped to her stomach and her job on the top of her head, and she's selling. We see that. And I'm like, this is all that I see, but y'all never showed me this. And I left, honestly, with more respect for our Black sisters, because 90% of the people I saw on the road selling was a sister holding a baby, selling things, sweating, and still smiling. And I was like, wow. And I'm complaining because I'm back in school working a full-time job and I make good money in AC, and they ain't got no AC. And I want to complain. But then I also left saying, yo, I want real estate here. Because I'm like, it's beautiful in Africa. I felt
It's gorgeous.
like I was at home, yo. Like, sis, I was like,
probably were.
this is Africa?
I don't know your genealogy, but probably were.
Listen, we're going back next year, and I am getting dual citizenship. I've already started the process. We've already started the process of building out there on the beach. And I do. My goal is right around the time, if I'm blessed to have a child, God blesses me to have a family. My goal is at about 10 years old, whenever that child is 10, we move to Africa and we live there for a year. And we expose them to the motherland, because it was right around that time when I started learning about Africa. And I don't want my child to learn about Africa in that context. I want them to get the education, but also I want you to experience it as well. So I can't wait to go back, man. I'm excited about it.
That's amazing. It's such a beautiful place, and it's big. Like, you still just went to one country. It's a whole continent. Like, it's amazing.
I didn't know
how
Egypt was in Africa. I didn't know.
Come on now, Anthony.
I'm like, what in the world? Egypt was in Africa?
Yeah, no.
I mean, I knew, but growing
we
up,
gonna send
I
you a
didn't know
map.
Egypt was in Africa. Right? You know what I'm saying? Because they just talked about Egypt.
But you know what? I know you're not the only person.
Yeah,
I'm
correct.
laughing, but
no, you're absolutely right.
You're not the only one.
I had this conversation with Kirsten, my 5th grade teacher. When I was in 5th grade, I was able to draw a map, I don't know if I could draw from scratch, but basically, if you had handed me a piece of paper with a map of Africa with all the borders at the time, without any sort of names on them, I could write down every single country, right? I know that was against the curriculum, but that was my teacher at the time who made a point to make sure that the children in her class and under her supervision were very clear on those things. And it wasn't until I got older that I realized a lot of people did not have any teachers who were rebellious enough to make those points. And so I fully get it. Now, obviously, a lot has changed in terms of the borders since the 90s when I was in fifth grade. But all that to say, I understand why you would be confused about that. And I actually think it's pretty cool that you'd even be transparent enough to say that. But the reason why I asked that question about Africa, and you just so happened to talk about ownership, and previously, our earlier part of the conversation, you talked about legacy, is that in the book, because I want to transition talking about the book a little bit, you also kind of continue along those lines. You're talking about the importance of it. You're basically also expressing some frustrations with that. I don't believe, I could be wrong, but as long as I've known you, I don't know that you've always carried that sense of frustration. And I'm pretty sure you were done with the manuscript by the time, you did that. Maybe you weren't, but like what led to you to kind of take that tone and to just be really clear about expressing that frustration, but also just wanting to really hammer home the importance of legacy and ownership as a core principle as it relates to how we think about personal finance and money?
You're right. I haven't always carried that frustration because I've never seen it before. And I think if I'm just being very transparent and honest, when I had the opportunity to be around a bunch of rich white people, that's where the frustration came from. Because I'm like, wait, why in the hell do y'all have it and we don't have it? Like, but then we look good. We got the nice cars, we got the nice things, but we don't have no legacy that we're passing down to our kids. And I mean, literally overnight, that came an instant frustration to me. And I couldn't vocalize it because of certain places and environments of where I was. And I didn't want to be disrespectful. But now that I'm out on my own, it is a huge part of me because here's the truth. And I hate to say it. My parents are going to leave me with a legacy, but they're going to leave me a legacy of more of a kingdom legacy, of hard work legacy. But they're not leaving us with millions. They're not leaving us with, businesses. They're not giving us an alley hoop financially and from a practical standpoint to help set our kids up to get ahead. No, no. And I love my family because they've given me what they got themselves, right? But legacy is not just wisdom. Legacy is also practical. A good man and or woman in this situation leaves an inheritance, something tangible to their children's children. And when I'm sitting in these rooms with these rich white people, yeah, man, I got like I opened up a 529 for my great granddaughter. I'm like, your great granddaughter? Yeah, she ain't even here yet. And I'm already thinking about her. Like, wait, how come no one told me to think about my son before he ain't? How come no one taught me that I could think about my son before I even met his mom? That I could legally start setting aside something to pass down to him before he even get here, before my granddaughter gets here. I'm like, wait, what? Yeah. I even opened up a bond and this account for them. So when they turn 18, I could turn over to them and they already got $200,000 in there. But I only put $10,000 of my own money in there. So this whole time, y'all, I'm thinking that they are getting into their bank account and giving them millions. No, man, they out here saying, yo, let me take a little bit of my money, put it into the stock market, put it into an investments, let the compound interest get it, and then it looks like I gave it to you. I'm like, black people, we can do this too. And y'all said, I'm like, that's where the frustration came from. Because I'm like, y'all, we can do this. But we want to have the watches, we want to look good. And don't get it twisted. I love to look good too, right? I think that's important for our culture is to look good. Black people, we know how to look good. But what I am saying is let's look good, be good, and pass down good. And so it's become a huge passion. And sometimes it rubs, our community wrong. And that's fine, right? Because it's like for me, I'm not here to make you feel good. I want to educate you. I want to show you what I've killed, bring it back, and I need you to eat it. Now you may not like what I'm serving you, and that's up to you, right?
Right.
But for me, I'm 40, don't have any kids. I've had a 529 for 3 years now. I don't even know if I'm going to have a child. But could you imagine what will happen if if I have a kid and God blesses me to see that young kid, young daughter or son of mine, graduate high school, and I give them a check for $200,000, and I only put maybe $15,000 of my money in it? Do you know how that changed the trajectory of my child's future?
Yes.
And I'll look them dead in the eyes and I say, yo, like, I thought about you before you was even born. Now what happens? They're going to do the same thing for their children. At 18, they're going to open up a 529 and put $20 in there just for their children. Now what happens? I gave them $250,000. Now they giving them $500,000 because they're going to be 18 doing it. And then now it's going to be like, well, I ain't get married until I was 30. Now you are 12 years ahead for your child. That's legacy. And that's why I get so passionate about it. Let me shut up, but hopefully I answered your question.
No, I like the energy because I can tell that it's in the book from the beginning to the end, starting with the title. The title, Take Your Seat at the Table. And I always emphasize the take and the your, because we always talk about a seat at the table. But you are giving a specific directive. Take your seat at the table. And I love how you use table as a metaphor. You start talking about how, you know, what it stood for in your family was this place. It wasn't just like a piece of furniture. It was central to getting the rules, the rituals, understanding what life is and the lessons that you need to learn and the tough conversations that you need to have. But then you tell this story at the beginning where you are amped to present this idea and you walk into a room and you realize there ain't no seat for you at the table. And you talk about how you kind of felt like an outsider in your own life. And I know for a fact that there are people listening to this podcast right now that feel the same way. They have ideas. They feel like they need permission or a seat or for somebody to scoot over. And I want to go back to that moment where you were, I believe you were a youth pastor and you didn't have the seat, and then talk about why that was not your point of frustration or what you felt at that time that led you to now this point where you can look back and be like, oh my God, that was a pivotal moment.
Pivotal moment in my life, because here I go, I'm the youth pastor and it's my conference. I'm supposed to lead it, but I didn't feel worthy to sit at the table because I was just a youth pastor, but I was leading it. And so everyone was looking at me, but that was supposed to be for that season. That was supposed to be my table and I lead it. But no one taught me how to lead my table. Let me tell you what America taught us. And we hear this all the time in the Black community and people may get upset with me. I'm sorry. I still love y'all. We need to build our own table. With that going on, we built America. We know how to build. We can build something and then not want to sit at what we built. Right. We can build something and then we want to take a seat at the side of the table. But we are worthy to sit at the head of it because we built it. Like it is my sweat and tears and blood and hands that built the table. I'm sitting at the table talking to y'all right now in this hotel room. And if I built this table, I need to sit at the head of it. Or I have the right to sit at the head of it. And so what I've learned in life is that, you know, specifically with African Americans, we're the most creative group of people. We know how to build. But I think sometimes we allow others to tell us what to do with our life. So I'm the youth pastor. In the book, I also talk about the story of this young lady, young Black lady. And she's a good friend of mine. About like almost 7 years ago, her boss called her into the office and literally told her like, hey, here's what you're going to do for the next 7 years of your life. You're going to get this job promotion. You're going to work over here. Then from there, you're going to work this and here and there. Boom, 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 boom. Then eventually within 7 years, you're going to be the VP of this department. You're going to be making about $200,000 a year. Oh, and by the way, you can't have any kids because if you have kids, it's going to stop the whole trajectory and you just can't do it. You got to do it. And we're sitting down at Starbucks and I'm like, did he ask you what you want to do with your life? Did he even ask you, do you want kids? And when do you want? Did he ask you, hey, what do you want to do here? And she was like, no, he never did. I said, so when do you want kids, sis? She was like, me and my husband are thinking about having kids in 2 years. But your boss has told you if you want to win, you can't have kids. Did you want to be the vice president at this job, at this place? I really wasn't thinking about it. It's a little stressful, but he just told you what you're going to do. And I said, so your boss is sitting at the head of your table, telling
Hmm.
you what to do with your life, telling you when you should have kids. Because if you have kids before then, it hurts his company, not your company. So
Correct.
he wants you to
Correct.
hurt your life to benefit his life. And I was like, it's your table, it's your life. And you got to make sure that your job, your friends, your peers, everything around you aligns with what you want to do. And if it doesn't align, you got to go. And I'll never forget, man. She went back. She worked that job for like another year. And then her and her husband called me, man. And she was crying. I was like, well, what's up? And she was like, I'm pregnant. I was like, congrats. And I quit my job. I was like, congrats. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm like, at the end of the day, we should take a seat at the head of our table.
Yeah.
I hate the metaphor of let's build our own table. We know how to build. Let's take a seat at, a table. No. Build your table and take a seat at the head of your table and invite your jobs, your friends, your bosses, your pastors, etc., to sit at it. But on one side is you and on the other side is your spouse. And you determine where you're going.
Yeah. I love that. You are no stranger to making big, bold statements, and you've even said some of them got you in trouble. Um, I'm looking at a particular quote from the book, which is, "You can't sit at the head of your table if somebody else is already there." And as I'm thinking about the story that you just said, and certainly even thinking about the work that we've done, our book, kind of asking people, inviting people to push back, to cash out, to leave, to, sit at your own table, all of those things, is really about empowerment, but it's very difficult to do that when you give your power away, when you give your seat away. And you talk about, sometimes that's the boss, but the reality is sometimes it's your parents. From a personal finance standpoint, sometimes it's the creditor. It's all these other people who have a disproportionate level of power and influence over your life, which I think gets in the way of a lot of people kind of achieving their dreams. Can you talk to me a little bit about your experience in asking people to push back, or maybe even your own experience in asking, in pushing back, and like what you've learned in that process?
I've had three major life experiences in my life. I'm blessed to have four parents, two biological parents and two step parents, and I love all of them very equally. Um, but my stepfather hasn't made one major thing in my life. Not one. The reason why he hasn't made one major thing in my life is because he had to work. Not because he wanted to work, but because he couldn't afford to not work.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'll never forget the first preacher I can ever remember was my stepdad. When I got ordained and preached my very first sermon, I was looking for my stepdad, but he couldn't make it because he couldn't afford to call in. He couldn't afford to take the time off because he owed too much money to different people. When I got engaged, the first husband I can remember was my stepdad. That's who I saw. And then when I wrote my first book, Debt Free Degree, that you all helped me out tremendously on back then. All of my parents was there but my stepdad. And as I talked to him and as I realized, man, he wanted to be there. Man, he was emotionally just hurt that he could not be there. But he had to sacrifice and work to continue paying the bills because they overspent and they maxed out credit cards and lived above their means. So he had to stay behind so that my mom could come. And I don't think how we step back and realize that sometimes we've built the table and we're taking a seat at the side of the table, but Bank of America is ahead of our table. Because that bank, that institution is saying, yo, you can't go to your son's wedding. Yo, you can't go to your son's soccer game, football game, basketball game. As a matter of fact, when you get off working your full-time job, you better go get a part-time job to make sure you don't be late on me. Because if you're late with me, I'm going to put you in collections. I'm going to mess up your credit and I'm going to be calling your other job to get my money. So we've given them the seat to sit at the head of our table. The moment we've borrowed and overextended ourselves, we have now put them to tell us what we can and can't do with our life. And watch this. My dad didn't know that was going to happen, where he couldn't support his son because he borrowed all that money, because he had all that stuff. And I'm like, I don't, that's why I'm against that from a financial perspective. It's like, because I don't want no one to tell me what I have to do. Now,
Mm.
is the loan officer, sis, calling me and saying, you got to get a second job? No. But when I see all them bills coming in, I'm stressed. I'm like, what am I going to do? I got to get another job. I got to figure something out to get these bills out. When really, if we can just stop borrowing all this daggone money and start living below our means and start operating off of a budget, man, we could take back control of our lives. And when you get to the season of, hey, I don't need a credit card, I don't need loans, but I may have a credit card just to get the points. I'm cool with that. I ain't knocking that. But I do believe that a lot of people just don't need a credit card because they don't know and they're not financially mature enough to keep that person at the side of the table. That person is at the head of their table. And as a kid, I have to say, I thought it was my dad who just didn't care, who didn't want to be
Mm.
there. And that hurt me because my dad wanted to be there, but he couldn't be there because he had to pay them back.
Yeah. A lot of people will hear the message. I won't say a lot of people. Some people will hear the message about people being at the table or the wrong people being at the table, and they'll overcorrect. And
Oh,
I
yeah,
want
yeah.
to make sure that we're clear
Yeah.
because you talk about having the right people at your table. You talk about how your table includes a financial advisor, a therapist for mental health, a business mentor, so you can scale all your different ventures. How does someone know who the right person to have at their table, the right people to have at their table, and how do they find them?
Easy. It's vision.
Mm.
What I tell people for me is, man, my yeses are super expensive, but my nos are cheap because my vision is telling me yes or no. And more than likely, my vision is going to say, no, that doesn't align. And this is what I
Mm-hmm.
tell married couples, to people in general. If you're wondering, okay, who should I invite to my table, into my life to help me fulfill the purpose, the calling, and the assignment of my life, you got to first step back and figure out, what is that? Okay, where are you going? What is 2025 going to look like? What by 2030, what have you done during those 5 years? By 2035, okay, for 10 years, where are you going? And if you have a clear vision, hey, I want to get out of debt, I want to go ahead and start investing, I want an emergency fund, I want to start my business, I want to get married. You put all that into a clear vision. Now, Anthony O'Neill doesn't have to say no to nobody. My vision says no. My vision says, yo, you got to leave my table because you can't help me get to where I want to go. Doesn't mean that they're a bad person, that they're a horrible person. You can't have them as associates and friends, but they should not be in your intimate space if your vision and their vision doesn't align and help out. Right.
Mm.
So I have some seats at my table, specifically in my life, for the metaphor, that they come in and out. Like, I have a sales coach. Man, I'm a preacher at heart, right? I went to sell my first course. I'm in there preaching, and I ain't sell no courses. I'm like, man, I know I just motivate. Yeah, you motivated me, but you didn't hit a felt need that had me click a button to buy the course from you.
Right.
So what I did is I invited a sales coach into my life, to my table for a season, to help me learn how to still be the preacher, but also calm that down a little bit and hit the felt need and communicate the things that people need to hear to purchase the course.
Mm-hmm.
I no longer need him, so I moved him out of my intimate part of my life, and we're still cool. We still talk. We still laugh, but he's not at my actual table. He's not in the intimate spot. So I'm not saying, yo, go kick everyone out. Now, some of y'all got some
Yeah.
girlfriends or
Don't be at the
boyfriends.
table by yourself.
Yeah, you can't do it by yourself, right? Okay, but you, before you do anything major, and I laid this out in the book, especially in the workbook, I walk you through how to really understand and how to write a clear vision for your life. And I tell you, before you even write on the workbook, go spend 3 days just thinking, processing, talking out loud, writing down notes. If you're married, get with your spouse. I tell y'all to get rid of the kids. And I'm gonna say this is gonna probably get me in trouble too, for these super saved folks. But I want y'all, for married couples. And I'm not talking about date, but I'm a married couples. Go on a nice little date. Go there, have intimacy with your wife. with your husband. Like, get connected so you can have a clear vision of where you all want to go. Like just have freedom to do that. No kids, because here's my thing. I have a lot of couples come to me and they're arguing over money. I can't give them relationship advice. But what I've learned is, well, you're arguing because you two are not connected in a way to where you all have a clear vision of what you all want to do. So you're upset with her, you're upset with him because y'all have two different ideas when you should have one. Now, how you all get to that one idea, if she's working 80% of the time and you working 20 or vice versa, I don't care. But what's the vision for the family? And if you don't have that vision, it's just going to be a problem. And so I just think if you're going to take control of your life, before you remove anyone from your life, before you add anyone to your life, just make sure that you, and if you're married, and your spouse have a clear vision, and enjoy it. Because we're going to make one every year, y'all. And we probably going to have a lot of kids because we're going to have a lot of vision nights.
Vision planning.
We're going to call them vision nights. Let's connect.
Come vision plan with me real quick.
Y'all gonna be the Christian brother gonna be like, how did Anthony go from 0 kid to 10 kids? It's that vision, baby. It's that vision.
Got a lot of vision. Hey, yo, man, I am so proud of you, bro. Again, like I said, I knew you before I met you. Getting to know you over the years, multiple projects, multiple, just you live out loud. You're transparent. You own your failures. You own and celebrate your successes. You've matured. It's just been really, really great to watch. And so I look forward to whatever's coming next. And we definitely be there, to celebrate and, just clap you up and continue to recommend you to as many people as we can. So thank you for your time. I know you're busy, and you need a nap. And so, I'm going to let you do that. Where can people learn more about you and, everything you got going on?
Man, it's simple. All things from social media, how to get the book, free resources, anthonyoneal.com. Check it out. Would love to serve you in any capacity that I can. And thank you all, man. You all are vets in this business, man. And I appreciate y'all for y'all service. And I've learned a lot from y'all. So it's an honor to have me on y'all show. And I mean that for real.
Thank you.
All right, brother.
If you like videos like this and want to see more, make sure you click subscribe and turn on notifications.